in lesson 2.2, we're going to deal with linear equations. First of all, some key terms you need to write down. First, what a linear equation is and what a linear function is. So if you need to pause the video to write these down, but a linear equation is an equation that has no operations other than addition, subtraction, and multiplication of a variable by a constant. In other words, you don't have any squaring of any variable or anything like that. Both, usually in a linear equation, linear function, both variables are going to be to the first power. A linear function, we're going to use that functional notation that we talked about. F of x is like a y, a function whose ordered pairs satisfy a linear equation. Any linear function can be written in the form f of x equals mx plus b, which would be slope-intercept form, where m and b have to be real numbers. So pause the video if you need to write those down, and then we're going to go on to identifying linear functions. State whether each function is a linear function. Explain. This first one is g of x equals 2x minus 5. And that is a linear function. If you notice, remember that's like y equals 2x minus 5. We've just got multiplication, subtraction on the other side. So that is, if you notice, in slope-intercept form. So that is a function. So yes, and we're just going to put it's in mx plus b form, or slope-intercept form. So that's good enough for your explanation. The second one, if you notice right here, and again, if you want to think of p of x being like a y, so y equals x cubed plus 2, you have x cubed. That is not a linear function. So that is not a linear function, and it's because you have the x cubed on there. Linear functions only have variables to the first power. If you look at the last one, t of x equals 4 plus 7x, that is a linear function. We could write it with our x term first, so 7x plus 4, so that's very similar. That's mx plus b form. Okay, so it's in f of x equals mx plus b form. So that is a linear function. You don't have a power other than 1 on them. Now we're going to talk about standard form. You haven't dealt a ton with this. We deal mostly because for graphing reasons we want them in, or it's easier to graph in slope-intercept form, but any linear equation can be written in what we call standard form. This right here is standard form. ax plus by is equal to c. A, b, and c are integers. Reminder that integers do not include fractions, so positive or negative whole numbers, whose greatest common factor is 0. I'm going to add one other thing on there. A must be bigger than 0. What that means is the coefficient, or the number in front of x, must be positive. Okay, it doesn't matter in front of y, you can have negatives, okay, but a must be bigger than 0. No fractions or decimals, okay. Always reduce if you can. So if those numbers, a, b, and c, and we'll get to some examples here in a second, if they can be reduced, let's say they were all even, and 2 goes into all of them, then you need to reduce them or divide them all by 2. So make sure to also take out or reduce by what I'll call it the greatest common factor. And we'll have an example that we do that for, so you'll get to see that. All right, first equation here. Write the equation in standard form. Identify a, b, and c. If you look right now, this equation is in slope-intercept form. Y equals 3x minus 9. To get it in standard form. Now, I said the coefficient on x must be positive. So what you want to do is, if it's not in standard form, the x and y term have to be on the same side. So what you always want to do is locate the x term. Okay, so right here is my x term, 3x. And ask yourself, is it positive where it's at? And it is. Okay, so I don't want to move it to the other side because then it would be negative 3x. So if it was negative, then you want to move it to the other side. But we want to get x and y on the same side, and x must be a positive, or a has to be bigger than 0. Okay, so I want to keep the 3x on that side, which means I want to do this. I want to get my y on that side. So to get the y on that side, I subtract y, which means I'm going to subtract y over here. So I'll have a minus y. Standard form says just x and y have to be on the same side. Doesn't matter if it's right and left, but you want to have it where the x term is positive. And now I want to get rid of this. I don't want the minus 9 on this side anymore. I want to get that to the other side, your constant term or your number term. So I want to add 9. So I'll have 9 is equal to 3x minus y. This is now in standard form. And the one thing you have to check is, could I reduce? In other words, my coefficients, I have 3 in front of x, negative 1 in front of y, and then 9. The greatest common factor of those is 1. Okay, so you can't divide. We'll have one later that we can end up simplifying on. So this would be standard form. Your x and y are on the same side. If you want to rewrite it as 3x minus y equals 9 and put your x term, that's the same side. You can change what you have, the sides of your equation. As long as you keep the signs the same, doesn't matter. You don't have to do that. You can have the x and y terms on the right. Now, they want you to identify a, b, and c, so make sure you do this when you're working on your problems from this lesson. A is what's in front of x, so a would be 3. B is what's in front of y, which is negative 1. And C is the constant term that's on the other side, which is 9. Let's go to another example. Write each equation in standard form, identify A, B, and C. If you notice here, we got to get x and y on the same side. So some things to notice with this. Find your x term, because x and y are not on the same side. So find your x term. It's right here. Notice it's negative. We don't want it to be negative. So I need to get rid of it on that side, which means I need to add 2/3 x. I'm going to add 2/3 x. Okay, and then I want to keep my y on that side, but I want to get rid of my minus 1. I want to bring that to the other side. So I'm going to add 1, which means I'm going to add 1 over here. So 1 is equal to, now we want to put our x term first on this side. So we're going to put 2/3 x first, and it's positive. And then we're going to put our y term. We did not move the 2y, that's still on the right hand side, so it's plus 2y. Now we've gotten our x and y terms on the same side, our constant terms on the other side. So that's what we want, except for, notice this right here. We have this little fraction, 2/3. You cannot have the coefficients be fractions in standard form. So we need to get rid of that. Here's how you do it. Look at the number that's on the bottom, which is a 3. We want to multiply every term by 3. We're going to multiply the whole equation by 3. So I'm going to do it here, I'm going to do it here, and I'm going to do it here. Why do we do that? Because the 3's cancel there, and that's going to get rid of our fraction and leave us with just 2x. Over here I have 3 times 1, which is 3. Over here I'm multiplying 2y by 3, so that's going to be 6y. Okay, so I have 3, 2, and 6 for my numbers. That's okay, they cannot be reduced. We'll look at one that could be reduced in the next problem here. So there is standard form. Let's identify A, B, and C from that. So A is what's in front of x, which is 2. B is what's in front of y, which is 6. And C is the constant term on the other side, which is 3. So make sure you do both. Get it in standard form, identify A, B, and C. No fractions. You need to multiply to get rid of them. Let's go on to the next one. 8x minus 6y plus 4 is equal to 0. Notice your x and y's right here are already on the same side. Now you want to check, is your x term positive? And notice we have an 8 in front of it, positive. So we want to keep them on this side. If the x term was negative, then you would want to move them to the other side to make the x term positive. So that means I just got to get rid of this, which means I'm going to subtract 4. So I have 8x minus 6y is equal to negative 4. We got our x term positive. X and y are on the same side. Our constant term is on the other side. There's no fractions, but what you need to notice is look at these numbers. If there is a common factor other than 1 that goes into them, you need to divide them by that common factor. Here's what I mean. They're all even. 2 goes into all of them. That's the biggest number that goes into them. We're going to divide everything by 2. You need to reduce. Okay, and always check this. So that would leave me with 4x minus 3y is equal to negative 2. You reduce if you can. We couldn't on the other ones because the greatest common factor was 1. And now we're going to identify A, B, and C. So A is what's in front of x, which is 4. B is what's in front of y, which is negative 3. C is the constant term on the other side, which is negative 2. So make sure you give both answers when you're working in your homework for this lesson. The equation in standard form, make sure it's reduced, make sure there are no fractions, and A, B, and C. All right, and the last concept that we're going to look at is using intercepts to graph a line. First, we're going to find the x and y intercepts, and then graph the equation. Okay, some things you need to write down. To find the x-intercept, here's what you want to do. Plug in 0 for y and solve for x. And then to find the y-intercept, you're doing the opposite. Because to find the x-intercept, the y value is 0 for those points. The x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis. So here's what I have. We're going to write down the equation. Negative 2x plus y minus 4 is equal to 0. You do not necessarily have to get it in any particular form, slope-intercept form or standard form. Here we got 0 on the other side, and our x and y term and our constant are all, that's okay. You can leave it that way. Because now what we're going to do to find the x-intercept is plug in 0 for y, so I'm going to plug in 0 right there. So here's what I have. Negative 2x, and then I have 0 minus 4, so that would be negative 4 is equal to 0. And then solve for x. So I'm going to add 4. So negative 2x is 4. Now I'm going to divide by negative 2. So x is negative 2. There's my x-intercept. Let's do the same for the y-intercept. To find the y-intercept, now I plug 0 in for x. So let's write down our initial equation. I'm not going to put it in standard form or slope-intercept form or anything like that. You don't need to. To find the y-intercept, we're going to plug 0 in for x. So I'm going to put 0 right in there for x. I'd have negative 2 times 0, so that drops out and gives me 0. So I have y minus 4 is equal to 0. Well, to solve that for y, I add 4. So y equals 4. There's my y-intercept. Now to graph those, once you find them, it's pretty easy. To graph a line, you only need 2 points. So once you find your 2 intercepts, plot them. The x-intercept, or where it crosses the x-axis, is negative 2. The y-intercept is positive 4. And then all you really need to do is draw your line that goes through those 2 points. And let's go ahead and extend that. It would go like that. Make sure you draw arrows on both ends. So again, reviewing, find the x-intercept, plug 0 in for y, solve for x. Find the y-intercept, plug 0 in for x, and solve for y. And then just plot those 2 points on your x and y axis and draw the line.